2022 was an eventful year for the mother continent. From several key elections to multiple coups, the Ebola virus, the negative impact of climate change and high inflation. Well, to help us unpack what to expect across the continent this year is a panel of journalists. Joining us from Liberia is Dounard, Bondo, Charmaine, Ngatjiheue from neighboring Namibia. Dingindaba, Buyoya is in Zambia, and we also have Newzroom Afrika's Tumaole and Mohlaoli joining us from Limpopo right here in South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, very good evening. I appreciate your time on our show today. So, Tommy, let me start off with you, as you are closest to us. Now, we know that you are looking at an issue around mining that's had a huge impact on the community in Limpopo. There also have been other issues around what we call zamazamas in this part of the world. Talk us through what you are tracking at the moment, please.
Well, Hugo, what is happening here is that the issue of zamazamas seems to be escalating. Rather than being pushed back, it seems to be basically spreading right across all mineral-rich areas across South Africa. Now, this is not necessarily anything new in terms of the information being disseminated, being known by law enforcement authorities as well as government officials. In fact, Police Minister Begitele alluded to as much just last year. Now, this was when, of course, there was that unfortunate towards the end of the year incident whereby a group of women were gang raped during a music video shoot out on the West Rand of Gauteng or Johannesburg, mining district there. And this caught national and international headlines and caused uproar about the Zamazama scourge. What is happening in Limpopo, not far from where I am right now, in fact, I'm not far from Jane Furs in Limpopo, there is basically open Zamazamaring, if I can call it that. Zamazamaring being the nickname being used for the illicit miners. And these people are now openly mining in full view of the public and in full view of law enforcement agencies. What is happening is that they are mining in areas that are being inhabited by people. So residents are effectively looking on and watching the Zamazamas digging up their neighborhoods, so to speak, right up to literally their front doors. We've seen houses collapse. We've seen houses cave into these big crevices that are created by the Zamazamas. And it's a problem that the provincial government and, of course, the Department of Minerals and Energy, in terms of the national picture, are trying to get a grip on, but are struggling at this moment, I can tell you. So it was quite a sight to behold, coming into one of these open cast mines, so to speak, and seeing the brazen nature where people were just walking right past us and the cameraman, Dinti, and going about their business of unearthing the raw, rich minerals underneath the ground. We're talking here about minerals such as iron, such as platinum even. I've never seen platinum that close up, but I can tell you it's quite a nice metal to look at on the rock. You can see the rock is shiny. And what happens is that these Zamazamas then dig up this ore, and this raw ore is then dumped on the surface, and truckers come by and load it up and sell it onto some market. We're told by law enforcement agencies as well as government that this raw ore, in terms of the Zamazama activities here in Limpopo, finds its way to other markets out of South Africa. It is part of what is termed illicit flow of mineral resources out of the country.
Well, Tommy, you talk of issues around what appears to be a lack of law enforcement. So I'm going to jump over, certainly, to Dounard and talk about what's happening in Liberia. Appreciate you being on the line this evening. Now, there are a number of trials that are being carried out across the world as far as war crimes are concerned that have been leveled against a number of individuals that are from Liberia. And you also have an election that's coming up this year, Dounard.
Good day. Yes, we do have elections like most countries. From the region, Liberia will be going to elections, same as Sierra Leone and Nigeria in West Africa. For the elections in Liberia, the current president, Ngatjiheue, will be running for a second term. He will be going against former Vice President Joseph Boakai. He will also be going against Alex Cummings, who is also touted as a dark horse. As regards war crimes on the trial, yes, we do have a number of war crimes going around the world. Unfortunately, we don't have any going on in Liberia. Most foreign countries have resolved to try former Liberian war criminals, as the state has refused to try them, largely due to lack of political will, so to say. Recently, the Jibril massacre trial started again in Finland. It went on appeal. The trial is also set to come to Liberia later this year. Part of the trial held in Liberia due to the Finnish court system, and it was the first time a war crimes trial was held on Liberian soil. Unfortunately, the said trial was not a Liberian trial, it was a Finnish trial. Today also, the United States government announced that they have signed a new law that would allow them to try war criminals that arrive on U.S. soil. While this law is largely targeted towards the Russia-Ukraine conflict, to be able to tie Russian warlords, a consequence of the law would mean a lot of Liberians, warlords or former warlords that now live in America could now be tried. Originally, they had been tried, but they had not been tried based on their involvement in war crimes in Liberia, but instead they were tried on omitting their war crimes records from U.S. immigration documents.
Well, Jonah, I certainly want to talk about the front runners when we come back. We know that President George Weah has been criticized for going to watch the World Cup football. In fact, his son was playing, who turns out for the United States, and there were a number of Liberians who spoke out against that. But, Charmaine, let me come to you. This year, President Hage Geingob has described 2023 as the year of revival. Talk to us about what that speaks to.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity. Well, when the president speaks to the year of revival, basically speaking to reviving the economy, because if we look at how our economy was really affected by the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, and how everybody has been struggling to make ends meet, and then you see how the inflation keeps going up, and then the monetary policy keeps having the repo rate up and so forth. It has affected so many people. And when he speaks to the year of revival, basically the president says that this year we're going to see economic growth. Namibia was at the forefront in terms of discovering oil last year, in the past year and a half or so. And these like the oil discoveries are basically one of the biggest oil discoveries in the world. So Namibia is hoping to tap into that, into the oil market, hopefully. We've seen how most consumers have been speaking about, for instance, the oil prices. Of course, we won't see the gains at the present moment, but eventually in the future, we will see how hopefully that there will be jobs created. But for 2023, it's sort of like the year that will set the pace for that. And then Namibia is also at the forefront in terms of green hydrogen. We've signed so many deals. We've had so many pledges from companies world over. We've like one of the biggest companies that has won the bid was Hyphen Energy, and this year they plan on starting with the implementation program in terms of green hydrogen. So we're hoping that at least with that implementation, jobs will be created, because during the pandemic a lot of people lost their jobs. So Namibia is trying to get to a point where we can sort of be self-sustainable in terms of just energy, in terms of everything. And one of our biggest sectors was tourism, but because of the pandemic, tourism was heavily affected, and tourism is still, reeling from that effect, still trying to recover. So Namibia is hoping to sort of tap into agriculture even more intensively, and then we look at ICT as well, and so forth. So it's one of those things where we are hoping that the economy grows. Of course, we're seeing what's happening around us. Hopefully, that won't affect us, but one of the best things I think that we're looking at is like the fact that the oil prices came down. We're hoping that the Russia-Ukraine war won't really still also have an impact on our economy. But for now, I think things are looking good. The president spoke about how they are positive that the economy might grow by 5.6%. So we'll see how we progress, in terms, because it's just January for now, so we don't know how we will go further on in the year. But for now, I think most people are sort of in that space where we are happy, not happy per se, but we are hopeful or optimistic.
Great, Charmaine. When we come back, I certainly want to touch on the discovery of oil in Namibia and certainly the disparities between the rich and poor, which is a key talking point for many of those unemployed young people. Dingindaba, we're going to come back to you in a moment as soon as we return from the break. We can see that you're in the dock and you're out in Zambia, and that's a massive talking point for us because there are issues around power supply, not only in most of Africa, but certainly impacting Zambia. Now,